Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. I am finally going to review the Fenty Beauty line. Now when I say line, I actually only mean 3 products. I picked up the only 3 things that really appealed to me when I first saw them online. The day of the launch, I went onto the website and I was so excited. I picked up a foundation shade without really checking to see if it was the right match for me or not. So excited, I went straight ahead, jumped the gun, picked up the shade 310 because honestly the online swatches, yes, there's lots of different women, but it was really hard to tell which one would be the best match. And bloggers of a similar skin tone to me were buying like 200s, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? So my order came literally within 2 or 3 days. I already knew that I really could not open the foundation up. Like, if I'd opened it, I couldn't return it because in the UK you can't return makeup that's opened. So I just decided that I'd go into store myself the next weekend and try and find the right shade. I was actually really quite poorly on the last Friday, and I still went ahead and went to London with my friends, and we still went and we queued up for 2 hours. 2 hours. This was 2 weeks after the launch, I think, at this point. And we had to wait ages. I mean, they were really lovely. They did give us orange juice and they gave us like some swatches, like a little sachet of different shades and swatches. But the wait was intense, and when you're not feeling well already, like it was a struggle. So that's the one and only time I'm going to be queuing up for makeup. Luckily I did go into store and I did find the right shade. I ended up going to get a colour match from someone there, and I asked her to put 290 on, but when she did, it looked a bit too dark. I mean, it's really hard to tell with the store lights, but it did look a little bit too dark, so I ended up asking her to look for another shade that's still like yellow enough but not too dark, and she actually came back with the shade 260. So that's a shade that I have at the moment, but I do believe that with such an extensive line, like 40 shades, I actually do think that I could get away with 2 or 3 different shades in this line. So I think 260 is like my ideal everyday kind of shade. It's what I'm wearing right now. But I think 240 is probably my preferred shade, and I say that because I tend to actually like to look a little bit more yellow, a little bit more warm on a day-to-day basis. I mean, my NARS shade for shade reference is Stromboli, so I really like to go for something warmer. I do think it's really important to go into store and get yourself colour matched, but if you're not desperate for a new foundation, maybe wait for the hype to die down a little bit, because it's still going to be a really long wait. The hype has been crazy. It's been crazy. I don't remember any makeup brand having this much buzz around it. I think it's the fact that she was so inclusive, not just to the dark spectrum and the middle spectrum, but even to the light spectrum. You know, there are girls out there who are so fair and so pale that they can never find their match, and there's foundations here for them, and then there's foundations for the deepest, richest, most beautiful skin tones. And then there's also foundations for us in between. The only other brand that I can think of that I purchased from who has such a great shade range is Makeup Forever. And that's the only brand that I've also got my exact match in, their Ultra HD foundation. So I picked up the foundation. I also picked up her sponge because I love my beauty blender. I don't think I would enjoy applying makeup without my beauty blender, so to see a sponge in the line was really exciting, and it's actually cheaper than the beauty blender, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I also picked up one of her Kilowatt highlighters. This is the Soft Matte foundation. I'm really hoping she comes out with a dewy version as well within time. And personally for me, I really like a satin to dewy finish foundation. But it's a soft matte finish, which means it's not going to be super matte. My skin type at the moment is combination, normal to combination. I sometimes get an oily T-zone, but the rest of my skin seems to be okay. However, obviously when you're ill, your skin does tend to be more dehydrated. And the first day that I wore this, unfortunately, my skin was just not in the best place. It was just feeling really parched, and I didn't prep my skin with anything else other than my normal moisturiser. And then I did feel that as the hours went on in the day, it got a little bit more tight. So when I was kind of thinking, maybe I shouldn't have got this. But then, you know, the next day I thought, you know, let me just make a bit more effort and try to use a primer underneath, which will give it the best chance. So I whipped out my Laura Mercier Hydration Primer. That's really, really lovely. It's like almost like a gel-like consistency, and it sat so beautifully underneath this. And I was using a brush for the first few days to apply it, and it applied really nicely. And I loved it. I'm a primary school teacher, so my makeup does tend to have to stay on for like at least 12 hours. But because by the time I, leave the house early in the morning and then I come back in the evening, I want my base to stay in place. I don't have time to be touching up. It lasts really, really well on the skin, and it just looks good throughout the day. Even like later on when the oils start to show through, it still looks really, really nice. You don't look greasy, you don't look a mess. At no point did I really feel the need to whip out my powder and do a quick retouch. Like if I was going somewhere after school, for example, I still felt like my skin looked good. So longevity wise, it gets a thumbs up from me. Formula wise, I really like it. I think the soft matte finish means that it can work well for most people. Even if you have dry skin, if you prep it well and you exfoliate your skin, it's gonna look good for you. Coverage for me is a little bit more than I'm used to. I like sort of like a light to medium coverage. I like my skin to be seen underneath, and as you can see with this foundation, pretty high up in coverage. It's a medium finish, but it's medium to full. I think she's ticked a lot of boxes for a lot of different people. Packaging I don't love. I mean, I do like the frosted glass. That I like, and I like how sleek it is. I like how it doesn't take up too much space. I just don't really like the whiteness of the packaging. I feel like that bit makes it look a bit cheaper than it actually is. But price-wise, it's incredible. Honestly, £26 for this foundation, it's so worth the money and more. Like I said, I could honestly be 3 shades out of her whole line. I could fit quite comfortably into 3 different shades, which again is a really good thing, because as people of colour, we are so spoilt for choice with shades, which just never happens. I have to say that I definitely prefer applying this with a sponge. I know some people don't like using sponges because they soak up product. That's just, it's a given. You can't stop sponges from soaking product up. But I just find that the finish is nicer with a sponge, and I actually prefer the little tiny bit of coverage being taken away, because like I said, for a day-to-day basis for me, like, it's a little bit too much coverage. Moving on to her sponge. This is similar to the Beauty Blender in size. I'm going to do close-ups. A little bit smaller, just a tiny bit smaller than the Beauty Blender, and it has more of a sort of slanted edge here versus the point of the Beauty Blender. It worked really well to like bake. When I was baking under the eyes, I could apply it really precisely. You could also do it there if you bake under your contour. I don't tend to do that, but if you do, that's great. And it works well at getting in the corners and nooks and crannies of your face. It's really, really soft, very comparable. The two are very, very comparable, and this sponge is £13 and a Beauty Blender is £16. So you save £3. Would I stop buying the Beauty Blender completely and only buy this? Probably not, because I do prefer that the Beauty Blender has a bit more bounce. And also the fact that it's so soft is slightly worrying me, because it reminds me a little bit of the Real Technique sponge, which just tears so easily. So we'll see how well this lasts. But honestly, I don't regret purchasing it. It worked really well when I was applying the foundation. And last but not least is her highlighter. Now, she has quite a few different highlighters, and I like how she really made them all quite individual and unique. And the star of the show, the one that was all over social media that everybody was buying, is Trophy Wife. Personally, when I saw it, I just thought it looked incredible on Rihanna, but I don't have that richness to my skin tone to be able to pull that off. And it's interesting because I've seen different people on YouTube wear it, and some people have worn it in such a way that it looks amazing, and they've really like blended it into their skin and gotten rid of the intense look about it. And other people have just been like, no, this is gonna stay as an eyeshadow, and that's fine, but I just knew that I wouldn't wear it enough to be able to justify spending £26 on it. So I went for one of the Kilowatt Duos instead, and this is a box, this is the packaging. It's exactly the same as the packaging for the foundation. I thought the outer packaging, by the way, was pretty edgy and pretty cool, and it didn't necessarily reflect the inside packaging. This is the Fenty Beauty by Rihanna Kilowatt Freestyle Highlighter Duo in the shade Mean Money and Hustler Baby. Now this is actually the only product that I've not really been using. I kind of wanted to try it out on here and see what I thought. I think that is a decent price again. I mean, £26 for the two highlighters, so it's 3.5 grams per pan, and you're paying essentially £13 per highlighter. So it's not the cheapest, but it's not bad either. I'm going to try both of them out. And I was looking for my Morphe brush, my favourite highlighting brush from Morphe, but I can't find it, so I'm going to have to go with a Primark fan brush instead. This is going to give me a lighter wash, but we'll see what happens. So Mean Money is more of like a matte shade from what I've seen everywhere else. Ooh, it's very natural. Now I did see this online, and I did think that is just lovely for every day. It's just a very natural highlight. It's very undetectable in the skin, you can't really see it. I'm just going to put some here too. It's lovely. Considering some people were really complaining about this shade, I don't see what the fuss was about, because I actually really like that finish. It's perfect for every day, which is exactly what I wanted. And now let's go on to Hustler Baby, which is definitely the more intense version. And put some of that on my cheeks. Oh yes. So Hustler Baby is a lot more intense, as you can see. Hustler Baby has definitely got more of a golden sheen, whereas the Mean Money shade is a little bit more neutral, I'd say. There's definitely a sort of almost greeny gold reflex in Hustler Baby, which is gorgeous. I'm just going to put this on top of Mean Money now to amp the highlights up. Wow. I am so happy with this purchase. This has really surprised me in the best way. I didn't expect this to be as beautiful as it actually appears. It is stunning. Normally I like to dampen my face with a setting spray first and then go with highlights to make it intense, but this did all the work for me. I didn't need to do any of that. I've come a little bit closer just to tell you my final thoughts on the 3 Fenty products that I purchased. Let's start off with our foundation. I am giving it a 9 out of 10. I think the longevity is amazing, and so are the shade ranges. The sponge a 7 out of 10, and that means that it's still great. I think the price is really fair. £13 is a really good price for the sponge, and it performs very similarly to a Beauty Blender. The only thing I would say is I noticed that there was a little bit more coverage on my Beauty Blender side versus the side that I use the sponge with, which kind of shows me that it soaks up a bit more product. We have the Kilowatt Highlight Duo. This actually is probably my favourite. Again, I'm going to give it I'm actually going to give it a 10 out of 10 because the highlights, both of them I love. I know that people are complaining about the fact that Mean Money is not as pigmented, but honestly I think it's perfect for day to day, and I think that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to have a day-to-day highlight and sort of like a more evening time highlight. I 100% would repurchase this again and again because the shades look so good. I actually didn't expect them to look this pretty, but they do. They just look so nice. The mirror is a nice size. What is not to love? I am loving this. This is 10 out of 10 for me. And that is the end of my Fenty Beauty review. I didn't decide to pick up the matchsticks or the lip gloss. I'm not a big lip gloss person, and if I do pick up lip gloss, it's going to be from TK Maxx for like £3, like I did in my haul. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like the video, you know what to do.